What's up, everybody? Brandon R. Scarborough here. I want to take a moment to share with you and tell you about my dream, my passion, ultimately my purpose. Dreams Academy is our nonprofit organization located in Akron, Ohio, where we specialize in mentoring young men of color. I started Dreams Academy in 2016, and since then, we've had the opportunity to impact and mentor over 300 young men in our area. I want to tell you about this because it's dear to me, it's near to me, and so I want to tell you how you can support. Go to our website and see what we're doing, www.dreamsacademyonline.org. Also, when you get to our website, be sure to visit our Queens Academy page. We launched Queens Academy so that we can start having the same impact with young women of color in the summer of 2021. It's been a great journey, and we look forward to impacting more and more young people. We need your help. Consider today making a donation to Dreams Academy so that we can keep impacting more and more young people. You can give online right at our website. You can give through Cash App, Dreams Academy. You can also text to give by texting DREAMS to 44321. If you are unable to donate now, that's completely fine. We still want to connect with you. Visit us on Instagram at Dreams Academy USA and Queens Academy USA. You can join us on Facebook at Dreams Academy and Queens Academy, or go to our website and fill out the Contact Us form and leave us your email address so we can add you to our email list so that you will get our newsletter so you can stay up to date with everything that's happening with our organization. Whatever you decide to do, however you connect with us, we're grateful for the connection. Thank you so much in advance for your support. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dear White Teacher. I'm especially excited today. We have a whole family with us. Pretty dope concept that we go try out and see how it works. So I'm honored today. We're taking a little different course for this episode. We're going to talk about mental health and trauma. I believe all the rest of our season we've really dealt with classroom strategies and relationships and things like that. But we needed to stop, take a moment and talk about mental health, trauma, some of the challenges that happen in our communities, why some of our children are who they are and what they are, and some of the things that you all will deal with in the classroom. So I'm proud today to have John Morgan, his wife, Dr. Ciara Morgan, Messiah Morgan, and Sade Morgan. We got everybody in the house. How y'all feeling?
Doing well, man. How
Good,
are you?
man. Beautiful, man. Beautiful family, you. Man. And, when he said he was bringing the kids, I was, man, bring them on. We listen to them too. So they gonna stare at me like that the whole time. So
in Wig Bay family game right now.
Good. I love it, man.
We with everybody.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time, man. And so
thanks for having us, man.
Yes, sir. Man, first of all, before we even get into the conversation, I know you probably want to talk about it at the end, but John is a fellow podcast host, so I'm nervous because he's been at it longer than me and knows what he's doing. And so, man, tell them about your podcast, extensively so they can dive into it.
Yeah, man. So the name of the podcast is called Live Your Purpose Podcast. Yes, I am a fellow podcaster. So shout out to you, man, because this is, people think that this is easy work. It's not work. It's not easy work at all, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot of respect and appreciation for what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, Live Your Purpose Podcast is a brand and a media company that we've evolved into now, man, where we sit down and have one-on-one conversations a lot of times with entrepreneurs and creatives, and we talk to them about, really their life story.
Yeah. And
the intention and the purpose, no pun, behind the conversations is to really try to spread an overall message of wellness, and really, take deep dives into conversations about mental health, wellness, relationships, and things like that. We just kind of expanded the conversation a little bit recently, where we are currently doing a new segment called For the Lovers, where we speak to Dr. Tania Lodge, and we just kind of take a deep dive and take questions from the audience on relationships and ways that we can kind of maintain healthy relationships, not only with our spouses and intimate relationships, but relationships with our kids, relationships with ourselves, relationships with our parents and our co-workers and things like that. So man, it's we just expanding it, man, just growing this, so so I respect you. I got a lot of respect for what you're doing, bro, because this is not easy at all, man. So much love to what you're doing.
Thank you, man. And shout out to yours, man. I'm an avid listener, man. So I'm hip to the Black Love series with Dr. T.
Yeah, for sure.
I told her the other day she's helped me through some things. So appreciate her.
That's what's up.
So Dr. C, tell them, who's Dr. C?
I'm Ciara. And I currently am the clinical director at Minority Behavioral Health Group. So we're a Black-owned state certified, nationally accredited mental health agency. Just really specializing in providing culturally specific services to Black people, Black children, Black families, so that we can all be well and restore ourselves back to our greatness. So that's what we all about. So that's where I serve over there. And then also I have a wellness company called Refuge 22, where we have wellness products and offerings, breath work, yoga, etc., coaching, consultation.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Messiah, anything? No. So nothing. Sade? Nothing.
What's your name? Nothing.
Not today. Not today. So let's dive, we kind of talked about in the beginning, I was sharing with you all what Dear White Teacher was about and, how we focus on kind of the classroom piece. But in your experience as well as Ciara's, you all have worked extensively in the mental health area and have some expertise to shed light on the things that are happening with our kids. And so even in our area, schools, school safety right now is huge. It's been a lot happening here in Akron with our kids.
Right.
And so, I just want to kind of dive into the conversation about, what are our kids facing? What are some of the challenges in their homes that they're bringing to school that teachers have to deal with? But, because I got 20 kids in a room, I don't get to always know what 20 different households have going on. And, however y'all want to shed light on that.
Yeah. Man, it's interesting, man, because I especially now, like I look at life like pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And really over like the last 6 weeks, I've been actually helping providing like programming and still working in the school system, working in elementary schools. And prior to being an entrepreneur, I was doing case management with Minority Behavioral Health Group, working primarily in the school system as well. And a lot of the things that we seen pre-pandemic is like, it's almost like night and day.
Yeah.
A lot of, obviously everybody is, feeling the effects of the pandemic. But since I've been working back in the schools a little bit and just kind of seeing how, some of the kids have been struggling and just seeing like the overall, just day to day of what the kids are dealing with since the pandemic, man, it's intense.
Yeah.
We gotta think a lot of all of our kids lost basically 2 years, of what they went, the day to day in school, like, so they went from being in a classroom setting to, learning virtually, and a lot of our kids didn't always necessarily have the appropriate environments or the resources at home to be able to like actually have a learning environment, and so to kind of like go from that and be thrusted right back into the classroom, that's a borderline traumatizing experience, you know what I'm saying? So kind of like to expect our kids to jump back into just being on learning mode and student mode is lightweight unfair, So I see a lot of the kids, just kind of really still kind of getting back into the gist of like what actually being in the classroom and being in school is even like, you know what I'm saying? So that's been the biggest thing that I've been seeing, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, is a lot of kids has really been struggling with just getting back adjusted to like the social aspect all of
of
it,
it.
All of it, the social aspect, the social relationships with their peers, their friends, obviously with the teachers, and just being in the routine of it all. You know what I'm saying? Like getting up every day and having to catch the bus and go to school. That's a completely different process than opening up your Chromebook in your room or in the living room. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a completely different process. So all of that is completely different.
Yeah. So when you look at it like that, it's almost like virtual school almost had a traumatic effect.
Man, it was rough, man.
Yeah.
It was rough because even like during the pandemic, man, I was making like house visits. I would go in and check in on my families and things like that. And listen, a lot of times, kids didn't have the Wi-Fi to be able to log on virtually. A lot of times, kids wasn't eating, a couple meals a day. You know what I'm saying? It was really just survival mode. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm logging on the class, that's a plus. Let alone actually, trying to actually do the studies and things like that.
So I'm glad you said that. Like, when you talk about the home visits, and that's the thing teachers probably don't get to see.
Right.
Like talk about some of the experiences, like no Wi-Fi or even lack of food. Like I know
I was working in Cleveland schools, and they shared one time that winter is hard, and they struggle with shutting down school when the weather is bad because they know that's the kids' only meal.
Right. Right.
So talk about the home visit and kind of the challenges that you see in the house.
Well, again, man, my biggest thing was like, yo, if the kid actually, shows up, if you see them sign in, man, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Like, let's just roll with that. Don't talk to me about a kid having a hoodie on or not having a screen on and things like that. Like, it took a lot for that kid to actually just get up,
roll out of bed.
Yeah, man, that was a lot. So, for me, it was just more so like focusing on what we did have and accepting the positives of what it was, not so much like trying to make it something that it wasn't. Because the thing about the pandemic is that it was a rare situation. Nobody had ever seen that, from the elders to, ourselves. Like, nobody had ever experienced anything like that. So, if a kid just shows up, man, let's just roll with that, And that was like the big conversation that I was having with the teachers, because they would have, understandably so to an extent, a lot of them were voicing frustration with like, yo, I'm trying to teach, but a kid may not have a screen on, they may have brothers and sisters in the background and stuff. And I'm like, man, that ain't even what it's about right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If a kid shows up and you can see him and you know that they safe for the, a couple hours or whatever, let's roll with that.
Yeah. But then, not to their defense, but how do you grade just showing up?
Well, my thing during that time was like, man, throw the grades all the way right now. You know what I'm saying? Right. We in uncharted waters right
definitely.
now. What's
definitely
the question that I kept proposing was like, what's the most important thing right now?
Yeah.
I understand that we educators, but right now we all in this together. We are
experiencing the same thing.
Yes, we are all impacted. Yeah. And a lot of times what I would, talk to teachers about is that like, yo, you got kids at home right now, you trying to figure it out as well. So that was the biggest thing for me is that like, man, what we thought and what we think that we know, man, we got to kind of get rid of that.
And so even coming back into it now where they're back in the school building, trying to readjust to something that's still different. Because we're never going back to what it was. And so, man, that's a huge adjustment, man, for everybody.
Right.
For everybody. Dr. C, what, from a clinical, I guess, standpoint, can you touch on some of the things that you see, especially in black children and black families that we experience, pandemic or inside or outside the pandemic, but are common, for our kids?
Yeah, it's like, where do we start, right?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, because it really is, where do we start? So if we think about the pandemic, right, and which y'all were just talking about, and just the level of stress that people, parents, everybody, teachers, like all of us experience, don't think that our kids don't experience that too, and have far less tools to utilize to move through that. So that in and of itself is a lot. Like when we think about just how we're impacted financially and economically, and just the amount of genocide that was going on a media level, but then also within our community, and like violence and just stress, period. Like things that's happening in the household that people have no idea about, arguing, or just stress from trying to be able to live and be okay and like be in relationship with each other. Our kids feel all of that and are impacted by all of that. And black people are significantly impacted by that.
Yes.
So that in the pandemic, before the pandemic, but then also before the pandemic, if we want to talk just like historically, and the impact of like relationships and black male-female relationships, and just the ongoing like impacts of what we like to talk about is the symptoms of oppression and slavery, and the symptoms of like post-traumatic slave syndrome is what we call it. So all of that plays a role. If y'all heard any of that.
Now this is fun. I'm having a blast. Look, you talking about relationships. I'm watching Messiah and Graham and the
whole mic just goes flinging.
This is real life right here, y'all.
Yeah,
it is, and this probably had a classroom.
And she is cracking up.
It's probably had a classroom.
No, this is dope. If you're listening to this, you got to go on YouTube and just see this. Like, I need more families on here. Yeah, I need more families on here. But no, I agree with all of that. Do you all have have you had any experiences, because we kind of talk about, I know race is a sensitive subject, but we try and know, we talk about it respectfully, and want this to be a safe space for our white listeners to really feel, hear, listen, and all of that. Your experiences, have you seen, or just what have you dealt with in regards to kids that whether you had them in a case or they were assigned to you, where teachers didn't quite know how to engage them?
Man, that was every day.
Yeah.
that was every day in the in the school system. Listen, even in extension to that and prior to that, I always look at my own personal experiences, right? Like, I went to private school, in elementary school, and like and when I went from private school and moved out to the suburbs and went to Copley, I remember being in the 5th grade, and again, I came from private school, so I had pretty decent, what people consider to be decent education.
Yeah.
And I never forget when I was in the 5th grade, first time at Copley schools, I asked my teacher. She was talking about indenting a sentence, and I remember asking her. I said, "What does indent mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?" And I never forget the way she looked at me, old white lady. She said, she stood over top of me. She said, "Are you serious?"
Wow.
And in that moment, I was like, and we always hear like, listen, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Make sure you ask questions, things like that. But in that moment, I felt this small, and I was like, never mind. But I never forgot that feeling.
You're good and grown now, and ain't forgot that.
Never forgot that in a 5th grader, and a simple question.
Yeah.
And her response in that moment made me feel so small that like, as I got older and I began to work into the field, I never forgot, that interaction, between teacher and black students. So that was always my biggest thing when I, was working in the school system. Is like, number one, establishing relationships with our children. You know what I'm saying? We have to be able to connect, like, you know what I'm saying? Because there is a cultural difference there, and despite what you may want to admit, that from a educational standpoint, the cultural difference that you experience here is the biggest factor.
Yeah.
But if our kids know that you love them and you trust them and you respect them, you're going to get a lot more out of that kid.
Yeah.
So that was always my biggest thing, is like establishing relationships,
Yeah.
with our kids.
Yeah. That's the biggest, that's why I like what I do, because it's not talking about what you learn in college. It's not, I don't believe college even teaches teachers about relationships, especially relationships with our kids.
Right.
And so this is even about developing a cultural awareness to on how to develop those relationships, be authentic, be yourself, and like you said, you'll go much further in your interactions with them. Even coming from a place like Copley, like even beyond 5th grade, growing, getting into high school, did you have any other experiences that like not made you feel small, but you looking back now?
All that I know was racist.
Oh, well, no, but since you took it there, since we here.
Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely, man. And it's crazy because I had an experience, like I had a rare experience. I played sports, so I was accepted to an extent. There was love there. So overall, I pretty much had a fairly good experience. You know what I'm saying, being a student. And I'm just a nice, personable dude. So like it was easy for me to form relationships with people and stuff like that. But like the love kind of came naturally just from from a social status standpoint. But looking back on it, there was a lot of things that I see now, and I'm just like, yo, that wasn't that wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? Whether that was just like, whether that was how the teachers interacted with the black students, you know what I'm saying? You could easily tell when people don't always have a lot of experiences with black people.
Yes.
Like that comes across easily.
Yeah.
Or if it was just like, man, I don't know offhand, but yes, I look back on certain stuff now, like, yo, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the
Yeah.
one of the biggest things was that, like, yeah, there were no black educators.
Yeah.
You know, there.
We were just talking about that
Right.
to hear that there's one out there now.
Yeah. It was very few black educators.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, out there in the Copley School District.
Well, you know, I don't want to seem like we picking on Copley, but just across the board, you know, another reason I do this, black kids are not at a high level going to see black educators. I think I read that black educators make up less than 3% of educators in America. So the numbers don't even, you know, let it
Yeah, that's crazy.
let it fit for that.
Right.
I shared that I didn't see my first black teacher somewhat in the 3rd grade. I don't think she lasted the whole year, but for a total year, I was in high school. But I went to Bookdo, a little different.
Right, much different environment.
Much different environment. Shout out 1040 as always. But our kids, man, they're not going to see that, and so how do we help support them in building, you know, those relationships? And the same stuff comes out, you know, all the time. Be yourself, but I want to talk with you all from the standpoint of you all get to see, you know, the different diagnoses, you know, IEPs and different medications and the different challenges. You make home visits. They're making office visits to Dr. C. At a deeper level beyond the classroom, how do we help our teachers understand, not even just white teachers, how do we help our teachers understand the challenges that kids are coming to school with?
Yeah, I do think that, and it does sound cliche sometimes, but I do think that the biggest factor in it all is like doing your own work, right? And it really does start from a self-knowledge standpoint, like, you know, big proponents and, you know, big advocates for therapy and doing our own healing and things like that. But like, yeah, looking within, you know, because when you really do the work on yourself and you look within, and like when I see you, I see myself.
Right.
Like when I see Gabe, I see myself. Like.
Right.
That's how we have to approach, or, you know, our interpersonal relations with one another. And a lot of times, obviously, you know, the cultural differences and the systemic racism aspect of it disconnects us from that standpoint. But that's the biggest piece of it. It's like, man, we have to be able to look within. You know, if any teacher, especially a white teacher, when they see our children, if they don't see themselves in that kid, that's a complete disconnect right there. When you see our parents, if you see the negativity in our parents, or you see a disconnect from our parents, disconnect in the kid, you know. So that's the biggest thing. You gotta be able to do that work within. You gotta be able to look within, you know. And it does sound cliche, but that's the really says it is.
When you say look within, are you talking about, because especially when you talk about this whole race piece, are you talking about getting rid of whatever biases might be, even kind of resetting experiences from, you know, I'm a white teacher, but I'm working in this urban context, but I grew up in suburbia. I grew up, you know, where I didn't see kids that, you know, black and brown children.
Yeah, it is. It is checking your biases at the door and just being honest about them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, some of my favorite white teachers that I would work with are the ones who would come to me, yo, Mr. John, I ain't from here. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm from the complete suburbs. You know, I ain't never really grew up with a lot of black people, but I love what I do. And I love these kids. I know that there's a lot of potential here, but I'm willing to learn. But from a genuine standpoint, just admitting your biases, man, you go a long way when you do things like that. You know, so that's one of the biggest pieces, admitting your biases at the door, asking for help, you know, and really being able to, like, take criticism and take the necessary steps to, like, when one of your black peers or, you know, black educators are trying to help you or check you, whatever the case may be.
It's a tough conversation.
It is.
It's a tough conversation.
You know, it's even tougher for the kids.
Yeah.
You know, that was always my thing, is that, like, look, it's tough for you, but it's like 30 of them in the class.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's tougher on them than it is for you.
So when you said, you know, kind of working on yourself, doing the inner work with yourself. Now I'm going to jump to your podcast real quick, because the first question you ask everybody is, how are you?
Right, yeah. It seems like, you know, your affect and stuff, your energy is down, you know, you seem a little frustrated, quick-tempered and things like that. And, you know, she was very resistant to that conversation. But what I was trying to really offer her in that moment is that like wellness doesn't just start with the children.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like we
Yeah.
have to be able to like kids are very highly intelligent and intuitive,
Yeah.
you know, people in nature. So like they know what's up. Even
And
if
very
they,
honest.
yes,
Yeah,
even if they
no
can't
filter.
articulate it,
Yeah.
they know what's up. So they can tell
Yeah.
when you like you frustrated. They can tell when you had a bad night at home.
Yeah.
They can tell when you ain't get that much
Yeah.
sleep, or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be.
Yeah.
But that was always my thing for me is that like, yo, you got to take care of yourself because that energy transfers,
Yeah.
you know, to our students.
And especially right now, man, teachers are walking away at record numbers.
Oh man, the turnover rate is crazy.
It's crazy,
It's
right
crazy.
now.
It's crazy.
And a lot of them are walking away because of they trying to protect their wellness.
Young teachers too.
Yes.
Young teachers, man, they out.
Yeah, they can't take it,
yeah,
man.
No.
So, you know, we already kind of talked about what's going on in just Akron.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, I'm in some teacher groups on Facebook, man. Man, you wouldn't believe some of the stories I read. And so some of them I read, I'll be like, you know what? I absolutely understand.
And here's the thing, like, I know it may sound like I'm like bashing teachers and stuff like that sometimes, but like being a teacher, man, is a hard
Yes.
job, man. It is a tough
Yes.
place to be in, and I genuinely empathize
Yeah.
with our educators, and I respect them too, man,
Yeah.
because it is a selfless
Yeah.
position to be in.
Highly underpaid.
Highly underpaid, high stress. You know what I'm saying?
It's 24 hours in a day, and you spend 8 of them with kids that you don't really get to know until months in the school year.
Exactly. You know
So
what I'm
20
saying?
kids in a room, you got 20 different personalities, 20 different home lives,
Yes.
20 different backgrounds.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes, so it requires a lot out of you to be
Yeah.
able to serve in that
Yeah.
way. So I have a lot of respect and appreciation for anybody who jumps into that education
But I'm glad you used that word. If you don't see it as serving, you're not going to be successful no
Right.
way.
That's
I don't
right.
care what color you are.
Right.
Like it absolutely is a service.
Right.
I get to teach.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's not a calling for you, then you shouldn't even be in it.
Right.
Dr. C, he started talking about, you know, wellness, and I heard you mention that in the beginning that you have the wellness, you know, company and the yoga. What are some, now this is for my teachers, whoever listening at this point, what are some tips and strategies and some things that teachers can do to, if the baby stop hitting you in the face,
Baby slapping.
what they can do for themselves besides drinking wine after happy hour. And, you know, they can still do that.
That might help a little
It
bit.
might help a little bit. You know, we don't indulge too much. Like you
Right.
said, the kids know kind of nights you
That's
had.
a fact. That's a fact.
I think that, you know, y'all were talking about self-knowledge and we're talking about mental health. And I think that we like to focus it a lot of times like on the children. But
Yeah.
I think that we can never underestimate the power of like people caring for their own mental health.
Yeah.
So like the best gift, it's a proverb that talks about like one of the best gifts that you can give your children is like your own wellness. And I think that that's true for teachers because when we talk about a village and raising children, teachers are a huge
Yes.
part of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that there are many things that are therapeutic, but I think that there is, I really do, I'm biased, I know my bias. I think therapy is so important for
Yeah.
teachers to be engaged with, as well as all of those other therapeutic activities and things that we know are like the bare basics of like rest and eating and movement and et cetera. So all of those things are helpful, but I think that people should go to therapy
Yeah.
because what teachers experience in a classroom and how to navigate all of that on top of like the full spectrum of their own humanness
Yeah.
is huge. So I think that teachers can consider therapy in addition to all the other things that we can put on the list of like that help keep us well.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I've been in it for years, and I'm not stopping. It changed my life, you know.
Dope.
Ain't nothing even wrong right now, and I still go, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes I'll be like, no, I ain't really got much to talk about today because it's been that helpful, you know what I'm saying? So it's been cool to
dope.
wean that away, you know, from before. I was like, hey, I need to talk to you every day,
Right.
you know, but in this context of teaching, man, I can't, you know, like I said, some of the stories I see and a lot of it is post-pandemic stress and trauma and coming back into the classroom and coming back into the classroom with kids who just sat at home for 2 years looking at a screen. Zoom meetings have become traumatic for me.
Man, who
You
you
know,
telling?
just sitting looking at a screen, and now they've become more beneficial. I ain't got to leave the house. You know,
Right.
we cool with it now.
Right.
But man, before, you know, sitting in a meeting 2 hours, so I definitely have a different level of respect for kids who had to try.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine that.
No,
I couldn't even
8
imagine,
hours?
I couldn't imagine being at my house.
Sitting at the kitchen table
way.
on a Chromebook.
No way.
And all the stuff that goes on in the background, right? And we know, right? Like,
It-
we know as adults,
Yeah.
how I can act like I'm on a meeting and trying my best to be present, and y'all just witness what is going on around me, right? Like, y'all can cut my face out on the screen and it just be me, but then if you broaden the picture to
Yeah.
Got the mic in her hand
yeah,
right
then
now.
she got the mic.
Yeah,
that
she's
he was
cracking
doing whatever.
up.
Like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, that's what really be going on
Yeah.
with people.
Is
And I think that, sorry, just to add one
No,
other
you
thing.
go
When
ahead.
you talk about like mental health and you talk about, there's something that's really small that we do that's big, which is talking about our experiences. And so I think that teachers gather and they talk amongst themselves as teachers. And I think that that is a real tool that can keep them well. I think it's important to not isolate. And when we story tell and we process through our experiences, that really does help us to integrate the experiences through our thoughts, our feelings, et cetera, to keep us well. And so there's small things that we do that we don't necessarily think of as like, oh, that's good for me,
Yeah.
that really are good practices. So like talking to your peers or having a space that you can share about what happened in your day, how it's impacting you, how you're thinking about it and feeling about it, really does help you stay well.
I think that's dope. Do you think that one of the challenges to doing that, though, is finding safe spaces to do it, especially in the context of what we talking about? We talking about white teachers who, like, one of the reasons I can't wait for this to take off to the place I wanted to take off is so I can hear those stories
Right.
and give back insight without judgment,
Right.
without, you don't have to be scared
Right.
to say, Lil Juju did this. I did not know what to do, So I think it's finding those safe spaces to do that. I think that's an incredible idea that maybe a lot of teachers don't have that support to share those stories about, that's why they go home stressed. They don't have nobody to talk to, or they don't have anybody to talk to that understands.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that's an incredible idea. The therapy, the safe spaces, yoga. I'm not a yoga person, but I meditate. I do the whole meditation piece, and I think all of that stuff is helpful to anyone's mental health. I guess, just wrapping up, like, where do you see, like, mental health has been on the forefront now? I would say a little bit before the pandemic hit, but then the pandemic really, I think, catapulted it actually because we all was going through the same thing at the same time. You've advised, the therapy and all of that. Kind of where do you see it going forward?
Just mental health. What you mean?
Like, so let's talk even in the context of students and teachers. I guess how can we talked about teachers? How can students apply mental health strategies? Because I don't know that they understand what wellness is on a huge level until something happens.
Right.
So better said, nobody's talking to our kids about mental health and their esteem until they're in trouble.
Right.
How can we be proactive in
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that that we continue to do is like is promote a level of healthy relationship with yourself. You know what I'm saying? And really like promoting that and exposing our kids to like ways that they can
Cope differently?
or just like there's always different ways and different divine things that we can tap into ourselves, especially as children. Whether that be like from a creative space, whether that can be finding safe spaces with their friends and things like that, having conversation with, or finding those places with adults. There are resources set up in schools now that we're like there are counseling teams in the building and things like that. And I think that alone, like the resources that I see in school systems today, I think it's like a huge eradication of the stigma of mental health that like I can remember as a kid, I ain't know nothing about none of this.
Yeah.
So I think that when kids see counselors and mental health professionals in the school system today, like they say, yo, I'm going to talk to my counselor.
Yeah.
It's not a thing like that anymore. So I think just
You're not
kinda
gonna get bullied for it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think it's just kind of like continue to promote things like that and just continue to normalize it, and encouraging them to tap into to the divine things that they have within themselves.
And the same. Now I don't know I think I might see it with kids a little bit more, but have parents adopted it?
In a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, like you said, man, especially since the pandemic, listen, mental health referrals across the board are up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Listen, from parents to couples to kids to, professionals, all across the board, it's up right now. So yeah, a lot of people are really jumping on the board and, trying to get services, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. 10 years ago, I'd have never sat on a camera and be like, I go to therapy.
Never.
Never. And been okay with it.
Never.
Yeah, so that I done heard y'all say it too, so Gabe, you go to, no, I'm playing. But no, man, I thank you all for y'all's insight. If y'all got anything y'all want to add, just on the mental health piece, feel free. This is how we usually end. I see the baby going for the mic again. She got something to say.
Yeah, she going hard.
She got something to say.
Baby.
John always says this thing that, like, he thinks that everything has a paper trail, right? So a lot of times, like, in schools, what we see and what's disruptive are the behaviors. And so that's a lot of what we talk about in mental health, too. Is like, when children are referred for services, it's typically because of disruptive behaviors, more times than not. Sometimes it's because the child is isolating or has anxiety or et cetera. But more times than not, it's for disruptive behaviors.
Can you define disruptive behavior real quick?
Yeah, so a lot of times we think of, like, classic ADHD symptoms or what we consider, like, oppositional defiant disorder. So not listening, argumentative, off task, running like a motor, can't stay in their seat, making noises. Just like anything that's not allowing you to teach with ease, right? Like you're disrupting the classroom. And combative, like you're, like doing all kind of things. All of that, though, is connected to something internally.
Yeah.
Like all of it is. And so if you see a child that's experiencing that, that is not just pure because they are wanting to be combative.
Yeah.
Like that's not what it is. There's something that's going on.
A lot of those kids get dismissed as bad.
Absolutely.
And it's just a general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to soothe their nervous system. And that's what's happening is that what we've all experienced is our nervous systems are rattled and we don't know how to tap into soothing our soul nerve or our vagus nerve. And so then we act out in all of these ways that look like us fidgeting, that look like us all over the place because we don't know what to do with that. Teachers do that, kids do that, et cetera. And so I think that, like, that's a big part of it. It's like if we could see each other as fully human, allow each other to be fully human, and know that, like, when people are having a hard time, that's connected to something else. And that's for teachers, that's for students, that's for parents, that's for everything, right? So that's me as a teacher saying when my parent is coming in acting like this, oh, she's having a hard time with something going on. That's when I see a child doing something. That's when I respond a certain way. Like, it's something else that's connected to that. And we got to start seeing each other as human, and we got to start giving each other grace and empathy because that's going to allow us to build relationships. That's going to allow us to create safe spaces, and that's going to allow us to be okay with us being authentic, vulnerable, and getting back to wholeness. And that's going to help all of us across the board.
I love it.
So that's what I was thinking about and what y'all was just saying.
No, I love that. And I think that teachers may struggle with, I want to do that, but I got 19 other kids all doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And it's just one of me.
Absolutely.
So how do I spread my empathy
Absolutely.
19 ways,
And
which
I think
adds to the stress.
I think more times than not, and I think that teachers should also be taught, like, skills that we learn within mental health too, like to soothe your nervous system. So what would it look like if I'm as a teacher having a hard time and I take and turn the lights down and I take a breath and I move and I do these things that, like, disrupt what the goals are of what we have to accomplish academically, but you're not going to accomplish those things anyway. So go ahead and, like, take a minute, get yourself together, because your energy is contagious. That's going to help get your classroom together.
And I think that goes back to what we just talked about. How do we get the kids to tap into stuff like that? If my teacher did that, I'm gonna be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Right.
But then they'll get
I need
used
a minute.
to it. Yep.
I need a second.
Yep.
And so now we all gonna take a second.
Yep.
And that's good word right there. That's good word.
I think that's the magic. And even if we think, oh, that doesn't work, let's try it out for a school year or 2 or 5 or 10 years and just see the impact of it. Let's just try it out. We've been doing what we've been doing for so long, so try out something else.
That's another thing you mentioned too, was having some type of mental health training for teachers.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's
beyond an hour-long
Yes.
PD workshop.
Yeah, ongoing.
Yeah, ongoing.
Yeah, it should be like
How to identify behaviors, extend resources, all of it.
I think it's also important to understand that, like, you know, these are systemic issues that we refer to. You know, these aren't individual issues. You know, these aren't one individual issue with certain teachers or even certain schools or certain districts. This is a
countrywide,
a historical, systemic
Yes.
issue that we talking about.
Yeah.
That has permeated amongst every, you know, place of being that we talk about in the education system.
It's all grind culture. It's
Right.
all productivity.
Right.
It's all of the same thing.
Yeah.
And that ain't getting us nowhere but to the grave.
And it's just so sensitive being in the education system because it's like, you know, there's a lot of time that's invested within education.
Yeah.
You know, within the learning environment.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
8 hours a day, K through 12,
listen. So much of my life was spent
in school.
in a classroom. You
And
know,
as-
in some
How much
capacity.
of this stuff are we using now?
What? Don't even give me. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, I
right
know,
there.
I know.
That's a
You know,
completely
college
different
as well,
don't
man.
even
Right,
get
and
me
then we
started.
encourage them to keep going. And then encourage them to keep going forever.
For
like,
what?
what in the world?
Yeah.
Says
And
the
that,
person that's been in school for a million years.
well, you know, and while we all waiting on that letter to take place from Biden forgiving our loans,
Listen,
that
Yeah.
can't
Joe,
even happen.
Joe, man,
Man,
make
look
it
at the
happen,
camera
man.
and tell
Yeah,
him, man.
Joe, make it happen, man. Come on, man. Let the law pass. They held it up. I got the email a couple weeks ago. Like,
Yeah, me too.
It was accepted, but they hold
What's
it
his
up.
name? Miguel.
I
I don't know. I just,
know.
yeah, I think we all just got pissed off that
Right.
it's held up.
Right.
Man, but then to that note, because of the pandemic, I believe that's happening for us, and yet we still gonna push the next generation to go do the same thing, and for what? And so I will,
Not
yeah,
these ones.
right. So I will say, and this probably ain't got nothing to do with what we're talking about. I appreciate this, whether it was because of the pandemic or not. I can't say I would have a podcast if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Bingo.
You know what I mean? It really brought out everybody's creativity.
Yes.
We was at the house bored.
Yes.
We had nothing to do, and so many of us, you know, you asked me how I came up with it. I said 2 years ago. Pandemic was 2 years. I was like, man, it just came out of somewhere else. It brought about a creative flow and a higher level of entrepreneurship.
Yep. And also what it did is like it continued to create this like ecosystem of information.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So like now, teachers can sit back and watch a conversation like this and actually be able to digest information that they may be looking for, that they need.
Yep.
But there weren't spaces like this
10
years ago. You know, so
Absolutely.
this is like, you know, this right here is definitely being disruptive to the system as we know it. You know what I'm saying? So that's a beauty in disguise.
Beauty in disguise, man. Man, I appreciate y'all coming through, man, bringing the kids. And,
Yeah, for sure.
Thank God
she
for
looked
y'all
dead at the
stories.
camera when I
Right,
said that,
look,
like,
look,
it's
look.
my turn.
Shotty.
Yeah, man, this was dope, man. I've never had babies on the show. So,
Thanks
well,
for
thank you.
inviting us. Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
your
you.
patience
Yeah,
and your
right.
grace
Man.
with us.
Right.
man, and we ain't edited none of it out.
Yeah,
whatever
let's
whatever
rock.
they had to
Yeah,
say
let's
is what
rock.
they had to say.
Let's
So
rock.
if you bothered by the babies while listening, then catch the next show. It'll be all right. And so what we do at the end, leave us with a word of wisdom, you know, whether it's from today's conversation or just something you know got on your heart. Tell the people where they can find you, man. Tell them where they can find the podcast. Tell them where they can find your merchandise at, all of it.
So yeah, man. You guys can subscribe to the podcast, Live Your Purpose Podcast, on YouTube. We on all audio platforms under Live Your Purpose Podcast. You can subscribe to our Patreon page for our For the Lovers segment under Live Your Purpose Media. That is. And yeah, man, check us out. You can find the LYP merch on there. I also do one-on-one life coaching with individuals on helping people find and live their purpose. So, you know, if you are interested in the life coaching as well, you can find me on www.lypp.org. You know, we can discuss some things like that. Other than that, man, pour into yourself. Spend some time with yourself. We in the holiday season. Stressors is up.
Yeah.
Don't stress yourself out spending a lot of money. You know what I'm saying, man? Rest, you know, break away from grind culture, man. Rest, don't go crazy trying to spend a lot of money and finishing the year strong. No, we off that, man. We trying to rest. We trying to live a life of quality over quantity.
Yeah.
You can find us at mbhg.org or info@mbhg.org. On Instagram, on Facebook. Also, Refuge22 at refuge22.com. But yeah, I would be happy to connect with anybody and help get people connected to mental health services, wellness services, anything you could think of. I think it's important to be creative and get people what they need. So yeah, that's how you can find us, and we can get connected. And my word of wisdom would be, teachers, you have been brought to this work for some reason, right? To serve and with purpose, and to be encouraged in that always. Like, you got this, you can do this, and you got to tap into your creativity. You got to understand historical context and get connected to some people that can help you in living within your purpose of serving the community in this way. I think there is few things that are of a greater purpose than like trusting people with your children. I think that is like amazing and it's respectable. So you got this.
I love it. Messiah appears to be coming back.
Coming back, bro. Come on in.
Come on, we wrapping up.
Yeah, we wrapping up. Come on, man.
You want to say bye?
Or not. We gonna wrap up without
I love it. Yo, thank you for checking out this episode. Big shout out to John and Dr. Ciara Morgan and the family for joining us today. We're excited about everything that's going on. Be on the lookout for this episode and the next one. We can't wait to share what's going on with the next episode. So I almost said live your purpose. That's his show.
We appreciate the plug.
Right. Live your purpose and Dear White Teacher. Download both of them. Like, share, download, whatever else you can do with it. Till next time. Peace.
Peace.